Welcome back, everyone, to day 2 of IAMHR 2021. Exciting day today. But before we get into some of the excitement of today, I want to talk about what you may have missed yesterday. Yes, I want to engage you with as much FOMO as I possibly can, because yesterday we talked all about the candidate experience and how to attract candidates in such a tight labor market to not only your brand, to your career site, and what other things you can do to help move them through the process. So yesterday we talked about designing an amazing candidate experience. That was with Cliff Yurkevich, scroll stopping, ads to really post on social to get people engaged with your brand, the analytics behind everything as to how to track people throughout the funnel, how to create effective job descriptions. Nobody wants to read page after page after page of what is going to be this job is going to entail, and really everything in between, including Johnsonville got the chance to talk about a recruiter's handbook for hyper hiring, JD. So lots of great stuff. If you missed any of it or know someone who may be interested in some of those things, tell them to register. They can view it all on demand on our website. But JD, I know we have EX today.
Yep.
I'm going to hand the floor over to you.
No, I'm going to send it back to you. I'm going to put you on the spot live with everyone who's joining us. And Devin, I want you to tell me your favorite moment of yesterday.
My favorite moment of yesterday had to be when we talked a bit about the brand stories online. And we mentioned how it has to be really cohesive throughout the entire process. And don't be afraid to take some risks.
Yep.
As a risk taker myself, in order to stand out, you may have to post some things that you might be unsure about, right? But take the risk, see if it is effective, and then go back to the drawing board if it isn't.
Yeah, Jordan Shelton said yesterday, which was one of my favorite moments. He said, not every post in your social post is a home run. And that makes me feel better because when I post and no one gives me likes, I go, I'll try again and I'll keep trying, because that's the point of trying to reach people and connect with people. You're not going to do it all the time, but don't give up. Keep going. And we're going to keep going with today. And we're going to talk about employee experience, as Devin talked about. We have probably our biggest star-studded lineup today, and it should be. Why? Because we're all struggling. We're struggling trying to figure out how to engage and retain our existing employees. How do we show them career paths? How do we talk to them about gig work within a company? How do we match them with AI technology and get them matched with mentors, right? How do they actually see and visualize their career paths? Heck, there's a lot to cover. And so we've got some great speakers. We've got Ben Eubanks from an analyst perspective coming up soon. We have 3 customers of ours, which we really love: Newell Brands, Quadient, and Southwest Airlines, a brand, quite frankly, the world loves. So we're eager to get started. And Devin, I think we've got a pretty good keynote to kick off as well, don't we?
We do. We are going to hear from Lindsay Morrow, and she is going to talk a little bit about some of the scary things that have been keeping me up at night, JD, the great resignation, as well as the turnover tsunami. And she's going to talk about the great trifecta of how to redesign the playbook for employee experience. So I am excited about that one. Just like Southwest, on this program, bags fly free, and we will kick off today's episode with Lindsay.
Welcome, everyone. I'm Lindsay Morrow, one of the members of our solutions consulting team here at Phenom. I'm really excited to kick off today's discussion about employee experience and what defines a great employee experience, which, as we know, that, along with everything, has changed a lot over the last 16 months. When the pandemic began over a year and a half ago, we each faced a different crisis. For some of us, we had to scale back our teams and operations, which meant letting go of amazing talent. Others had to adjust to remote work, which is crazy to think that has become the norm. And for others, business boomed and you couldn't hire people fast enough. Flash forward to today, and we face a new universal threat: the looming Great Resignation. One of the latest studies shows 55% of people are now planning to leave their employers in the upcoming months. Can you imagine what that would look like if we were to become a reality? If half of your workforce were to leave at the drop of a hat? It sounds a little extreme, sure, but even losing just a portion of those individuals could be devastating for all of us. The new reality is this: the way we used to appeal and hold on to talent isn't going to work anymore. It's not about offering fun office perks like ping pong tables and beer fridges, which no one can really take advantage of anymore. And it's not just about the 401ks, the perks, and how much PTO they get. Employees need to grow with their employers, and more companies are recognizing how important this evolution is when retention is at stake. What's in it for me becomes far more important to answer, and that answer needs to be both believable and achievable. Your workers have options and agency that they've likely didn't recognize before. They're taking control of their own paths, and you can support them on that journey and build a more capable workforce while doing it, Or you can widen your front door, because we anticipate an exodus of workers across many industries if employers don't get this right. Every single employee was affected by the pandemic in some way, young or old, married or single, whether you were a salaried knowledge worker or an hourly employee on the front lines. Workers are constantly redefining their values and what's important to them, and the pandemic only accelerated this. We've been forced to redefine productivity, to redefine work-life balance, and truly question the path that we each want to be on. Everything we know about work as we know it has changed. And now we're at a critical turning point. How companies choose to respond to these changes, both cultural and technological, will determine their future as well as the future of their employees. Our purpose at Phenom is to help 1 billion people find the right job. And this goes beyond talent acquisition, because the right job today is simply a static snapshot in time. What's right is always evolving, and so that means what's likely right today will not be the case in 2 to 3 years. Here's what we know now. Our people are leaving, and it's imperative that we take action now. So what are the biggest challenges facing employers now? As we speak with employers and learn about their unique challenges, we're seeing 3 common themes emerge. The first is creating a true ecosystem of engagement. How are employers keeping workers connected to the mission and the purpose of the organization? And how are they keeping employees productive and energized? The other challenge is creating a career framework that really understands and explores how employees involve at each individual organization. And the last one is providing a safe, flexible work environment where employees can maintain the sense of work-life balance that has now become the norm. Here's how we can begin tackling them. The first is building a career framework from the ground up. We learned that among some companies, efforts for development are already happening, but because this is done in silos, it's simply not producing results. We've discovered the need for a framework that didn't just spit out simple growth plans for employees, but did it in an intelligent way that creates visibility across the entire organization and supports everyone, from the eager employee to that manager that has been terrified of talent mobility. And we had to do this at scale across the entire enterprise. So how do you do this in both complex roles as well as complex environments? It always begins with the data. Starting with the foundation of our vast data network and billions of user experiences, we layer contextual insights collected from industry segments and the unique and underutilized data sets from individual organizations to develop a framework that is truly bespoke to that organization and the employees within it. It's an incredibly exciting endeavor. As you'll see, there's so much data, and companies can't manually see the patterns of evolution as employees move from role to role or department to department. So we rely on AI and machine learning to do that for us. This provides visibility into skills gaps and opportunities that enterprises rarely have had access to. If the organization can't develop this visibility, then they can't pass on the visibility to the employees. And as today's top talent, who, as we mentioned, possess the agency to that brighter future, they need to see the path if we expect them to stay. At Phenom, experience is everything. It is a requirement, not a nice to have. And AI is only as good as the human interactions it facilitates. So simply posting your open roles on an internal career site is not enough. Giving an employee a login to take a few trainings or courses, not enough. We must take a multifaceted approach to provide employees with the full experience that they need to pursue the right job. And not just the right job today, but whatever that job may eventually evolve to become. To make this happen, we must start by creating a robust talent marketplace where employees can access opportunities within the organization. Employee resource groups and other content also act as critical cornerstones to drive engagement wherever in the world they may be. Career pathing then illuminates the roadmap to their long-term success, empowering both employees and their leaders to foster growth and development. This can include learning and development opportunities and even internal gigs or projects that provide them that real-life experience to help develop their skills. Now, along that development journey, mentorship programs can connect employees with the internal guidance, inspiration, and support that they need to help facilitate that growth. Connecting all of these ideas, as well as the data within them, is where the magic happens. This is how we design an actionable framework and experience that employees truly need and desire. The second solution is creating a flexible work environment for both employees and employers. Why are over half of employees planning to look for a new job in the coming months? One survey found that 56% of workers said flexibility was their primary reason for leaving. For those who were able to work from home over the last year and a half, many realized that it was not only possible to do their jobs remotely, but they also preferred it. And we know that this is especially the case among parents and caregivers. But how can we make this possible across our organizations while ensuring productivity and balancing roles where remote work really just isn't an option? One thing we're hearing from companies is the need to be transparent and establish an open line of communication with employees and continue handling these situations with empathy. We need to understand the specific situations our workers are facing and recognize that there may be personal instances where flexibility is needed if that's an option. Beyond the individual level, it's also critical that you get a grasp of the voice of the employee by gathering feedback on their experience in the workplace, both the good and the bad. The best way to do this is by conducting regular surveys that give them a chance to share their ideas, challenges, and more. Look at what's changed from last summer to this summer, just as an example. Employee sentiments aren't quite the same now, and the idea of flexibility may be different than what they expected in 2020. Last summer, kids were always home, and now they might be returning to school. And even then, the situation is changing every single day. It's also important to ask about their expectations around workplace safety and their comfort around returning to the office. Remember, they don't have to be long, drawn-out surveys. Shorter, more frequent pulse surveys work just as well. And the goal here is to collect as much feedback as possible and then let the data speak for itself. If 75% of your workforce is saying a hybrid work model is best for them, you can assume that that majority will rule when planning for 2022. Here at Phenom, we're doing the same to get a clearer understanding of what our own employees want as we decide what our future holds. We're also conducting a lot of external research too. From an organizational standpoint, we're looking at both local and global companies of all sizes to understand and then follow their best practices. We're also closely monitoring the CDC and World Health Organization for their health and safety recommendations. But above all, it's about ensuring the well-being of our employees, continue to check in regularly, offer flexibility where possible, and of course, remain agile. Now, the last thing that we can do is better connect employees to the mission. Before the pandemic, this seemed to be a bigger priority among millennials and Gen Z. Now we're finding that more employees are looking for work that brings more meaning and purpose. In fact, one survey found that 60% of workers are rethinking their entire careers. So we need to find a way to ensure that employees understand our organization's mission and purpose and that they feel connected to it. One key way that we can do this is by leveraging the employee portal as a content hub to create and push relevant information to your employees. Getting closer to the overall company mission also puts HR in a really empowering position. Not only do you now have the opportunity to coordinate closely with executive teams to see where the company is going, but you're also the ones who will be crafting and pushing this messaging throughout the organization. Using the resources you already have, like cell phones and video tech, you can humanize this mission by collecting employee videos and testimonials, and then share that content with external candidates on your career site and your social profiles. So not only are you using the employee experience technology, AI, and automation to develop employees, but you're also using these tools as a way to deeply influence and change the company culture. And if you don't yet have a strong mission identified, now's the time to push leadership to help build one that is both authentic and meaningful to your organization. Engagement was always desired, but now it's required. We have to not only continue this, but transcend it. The engagement needs to be even more personalized to specific needs, whether that's workforce flexibility, career pathing and internal mobility, or the alignment with the company purpose. We need to show employees the destination, share the skills they need to get there, and connect them with the people and experiences that will help get them there faster. So that wraps up our session for today. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope you enjoy the rest of today's incredible speakers.
Thanks, Lindsay. That was an awesome session all around designing the playbook for employee experience. Couple things that Lindsay mentioned there I want to call out. Engagement, right?
Yep.
And JD, any good engagement leads to a long-term marriage. And
I do, Devin. I do. Thank you.
I should have gotten on one knee. But no, that's exactly what you want from your employees, right? Is to stay there for the long time through sickness and through health. She also talked about the essentials of EX and the importance of being flexible in today's work from home or hybrid really environment. Before we jump into the next session, JD, and I know you're going to kick it off, I wanted to quickly give a shout out to everyone on LinkedIn. This is IAMHR 2021. For those of you just joining us, if you missed any sessions, feel free to register at phenom.com/IAMHR-2021. You can view any of these sessions on demand and they are readily available for you. But JD, what do we have in our next session?
Well, Devin, you ignored our YouTube audience as well.
I did.
So we did go streaming live, as Devin mentioned, at both LinkedIn, but also YouTube. And we appreciate the followers from those channels joining us. But please, if you don't register for the content, you can't access everything on demand and you missed what we had yesterday. So definitely head to our website, hit the registration button, make sure you get registered, logged in like most people are viewing it right now. And so as Devin mentioned, we got a really great session coming up, and it's revolves all around Newell Brands and their plans for really developing, designing, and implementing a red carpet experience for their employees. The session's led by Ashley Blackmore. Ashley is a senior manager of talent acquisition. She's been great to us. She's been a great partner to work with. We thank her personally, as well as Newell Brands, for being a wonderful addition to our customer network. What she's going to talk about is really how they're trying to empower their employees with a transparent plan. That plan includes AI-based skills matching, career pathing, referrals, employee resource groups, and much more. So I think everyone listening right now is going to get a ton of enjoyment, best practices, advice, lessons learned, and some knowledge to walk away with. Thanks, Ashley, in advance.
Hello, everyone. I am Ashley Blackmore. I'm a senior manager of talent acquisition with Newell Brands and manage all of our operations. And today I'm going to talk about our plan that we had for our red carpet employee experience launch. This project actually started when I was at Phenom last year, and they demoed the product, and I actually texted my rep, I need that. So it's been a work in progress ever since, to be honest, and I'm excited to say we launched this week. So I'll go into a little bit of why we decided to look at the product, as well as why I got so excited about it. I have been here 12 years, and the biggest, I would say, kind of consistent feedback we've got from our internals is that they don't have visibility to all of the openings. They feel like individuals are almost tapped on the shoulder at times, and also just not a great job alert process. It would either work, not work, and also too, they were either getting jobs that just were too high of a level or didn't relate to what they actually put in the system. Also wasn't a great view or experience, especially when referring friends, etc. And also the biggest thing we've done recently at Newell is we have implemented our new values, which are truth, transparency, teamwork, and trust. And we like to use that obviously in everything that we do at Newell. And so with that, I feel like we're able to pull it in as all roles will now be posted globally, which equals transparency, to where we can live by our word, which is truth, and work as a team, teamwork, to have our internal employees trust that we have their futures in mind. So that was what we were really looking at when we started to decide that we were going to implement the product. And with that, we worked with Phenom at the very beginning, and they gave us a great hype video. So I am going to go on to that for you guys. So after we launched the hype video, we had to look at, what are the next steps to really get the product out there. And with Newell being we're a $6 billion global organization, we had to ensure we approached it properly and that the launch was going to be adopted by everyone within the organization. So the steps that we took from the initial meeting were to really look at getting cross-functional buy-in. It's very important in our organization that a lot of our functions actually overlap in certain areas. If you think about talent development and you think about our side of the fence, where we are looking now at how we can improve recruiting and recruiting internals into positions. And so with that, I demonstrated the product to our regional team. So everyone in EMEA, APAC, LATAM for their review and approval. Local HR VPs that volunteer to view the product, our new director of DIMB, our director of talent performance, our CHRO, the HRLT, which are all of our HR VPs, as well as our HRIT partners to ensure we could integrate the product properly. So everyone loved it, which I was not surprised. So we were able to then gain their buy-in, and then we really hit the gas pedals. So we then partnered with HRIT, IT, corporate communications, and the different business units, as well as facilities, for a full global launch plan. And that included flyers and swag that we placed on each employer's desk at our corporate headquarters, which were Newell products, of course. There were also flyers that were sent to all offices and manufacturing locations for distribution. We also worked with communications that were sent 3 weeks prior, the Friday before, and then one for go live. And then we will have some future communications as well as follow-ups. Also, banners were designed to run on our television monitors in all offices, a banner in our internal site, and also announcing the launch on the day of, as well as presentations were scheduled at global office locations. And I'll show you guys an example of that. So the first one is the flyer. The flyer was put throughout the buildings on everyone's desk. In the middle, I loved this. This was Shanghai. They actually put together a tea for all of their employees, had those great cupcakes made with internal mobility flags. And then on the far right, you will see that is what is on our internal site as of now, so that people can see the launch and go and click on it to access everything to set up their profile. So I also want to then now kind of walk you through our journey as far as what it used to look like, and then kind of what we added in working with Phenom. So where we started is this lovely screen, which is really, I could like to call it a data dump. So again, this has been something we have looking to change for a long time. It's just not very user friendly. It's hard to locate jobs. Again, it's hard to find where to refer a friend. That's where employees were coming to TA a lot with questions on how to do so. And also too, again, job alerts were not great. And then there were also pockets in the region that weren't able to access our jobs at all internally. So those were all things we had to kind of start working with. So this is where we landed once we have now implemented with Phenom. So this now, of course, mirrors and I feel like looks like our external site. So now our internals are getting the great same experience that we have been able to give our externals. So you will see this is the landing page, and this is what it now looks like, a little bit easier to navigate than what it looked like before. And you'll see at the top, we looked at obviously just internal mobility, being able to look and view jobs. When you scroll down from there, it also automatically matches jobs to you once you've created your profile. It also has referrals, how to browse jobs. We will eventually post events through here as well, a way to view employees throughout the organization. And then the DIMB page is where we are now housing all of our ERGs. and how people can join them. And so we hope that too will encourage employees to start reaching out to others that are also in the ERGs, and start, working with different individuals and talking to other people in the company. So the next thing we did is changed the job search capabilities. So I love the image that we were able to get together here. But you can browse jobs by, several different ways, which I love. It will also match jobs to you, and you can also set up job alerts that are AI ran. So before, again, the job alerts would either work, not work. Now they are going to be based, on the skills that the candidate is putting in. It is going to match their location preferences, their skills, and it will continue to learn more, as the candidate does more in the system. So as they apply to openings or as they refer more friends. So we feel like they really will feel like they have more control over their own career. And then this will be the new internal applicant view, where before it was somewhat of a longer process going through our Taleo application process. But now they have a very quick, simple view. What I love as well is they can also share the opportunity on their social media if they feel like it's not a fit for them, but possibly someone else. Also, they can quick apply or they can refer a friend from here. I love on the right corner, you will see we have the chatbot experience as well, not only for our externals, but now for our internals. So it'll be interesting to see definitely how the chatbot operates internally, as it's done very well for us externally. And then, so again, we'll have AI powered job alerts, which we're very excited about. So this is an example of the email they will receive, and they can set it up for weekly, however often they want to get it as well. This is our referrals page. So with referrals, we've always gotten referrals at Newell. I'm proud to say, I would say we all love working here. We all love our brands and products and get excited about it. But this referral program to me kind of takes it to the next level again. So here, before, yes, they would refer a candidate, but there was no way for them to see where that candidate was in the process. If they got an interview, did they get an offer? Am I going to get a referral bonus out of this? So with this, it's actually going to track it. So at all times, the referrer will be able to see, are they an HM interview? Are they interviewing? Did they get an offer? It will then also track all of their referrals that were hired and the amounts that they received. So of course, as that number grows, we're hoping they'll see the benefit, of referring their friends. And that can be an extra way for them to get some extra cash. And then also we are going to have, I love critical jobs that need referrals. So we, of course, just like every other organization, have very critical roles that need to be filled quickly. And of course, we would love to do so with referrals. So that has been added, and that is something that we have our recruiters highlighting what their critical roles are, having them tagged, and then it's going to feed over into the system. So the DIMB page is where I'm very excited again. It's got all of our ERGs listed there, and some feedback we had received was it was very difficult on how to navigate how to join each one. So we've now made it just easy process for them to join any of them. You can also view the calendar, which there is quite a bit on there, which is great. So you can see the calendar for each ERG. And what's going on and sign up for which things you'd like to. So we also did a learn more at the top. So if individuals then just wanted to see the description of what each ERG represents. So it's definitely putting a focus on it internally as we've been doing externally. And then we are now 48 hours post-launch. So we actually launched this past Wednesday, which is, extremely exciting. Obviously, we've been working on it for a very long time, and the team worked really well cross-functionally. And we, of course, had great partners at Phenom, per usual, to help us get to this point. So I couldn't help it. I am a data nerd. I had to go in and see our analytics and kind of how we were doing. I was checking midday at the end of the day. And now this is what we had 48 hours post-launch. So you'll see, which is exciting. We had 646 employees logged in, 880 employee visits. We also had 1,026 jobs that everyone was able to view internally. And a big thing for us, we had 26 apply clicks. So for us to have internals find and be able to apply to 26 jobs in that amount of time is huge for us. I would say a lot of the times we are begging or, trying to see if we have internals that are ready for the role. So it's very exciting to see that they are now able to view everything and then take that step in their career. The other exciting thing on this page is referrals. So we had 21 referrals total, which came through, which is, again, extremely exciting for us. It's something that we feel has always been something we've tried to push for, but I think this is going to take it to the next level. And two, it shows, I love the categories of jobs that they're most referred to. So that too can give us a focus on, maybe where we need to put some promotion behind other positions. So I think it's going to do a lot of things for us. So as far as next steps from here, now that we've gotten here, so next we plan on continuing to monitor the analytics, specifically at 7 days, 30 days, and 60 days. That will be focused primarily on what was shown on the screen before. So how many profiles are we getting? Are people still looking and adding profiles? How much time they're spending on the page? Also to looking at ERG and that page and how is that operating? So we really will be digging into the analytics just as we do with our external site to ensure that we are continuing to improve internally. We'll continue to promote the product as well. So sending out notes globally, just reminding people to create their profiles. Obviously, we have a lot of new hires, so continuing to push that process and make it a part of onboarding that they need to go in and create their profile and the importance of that process. So we will continue to push and market the updated referral process as well. We are going to put a new process in place for our recruiters being able to access and recruit internals. So that was another piece that was very much lacking for us. So our hiring managers all the time would ask, so do you know of any internals that would be, ready for this position? And as TA, we typically don't. We are removed, from that process. Our HRBPs are our partners, and they're the ones that would know if someone's ready for the role. So we would typically have to send out multiple emails to different HRBPs with the job description, the role, to see if there were any internals that were possibly ready. We are and still not allowed to technically, poach our internals, go and pull them from a role. And so we're going to have to come up with a new process. So we are working with learning and development as they already have a talent process in place. Right now it's Director Plus. So we are hoping this is going to kind of help fill in that gap. And so our recruiters will have access to the CRM. They will now then be able to see who's internal, who's a referral, and then we will just come up with a new process of how we approach those internals. So that's kind of next step as well. And then also we will track our internal hires through multiple systems to make sure we're increasing our percentage of internal moves. That is actually one of our Chief Human Resources Officer's big goals over the next 2 to 3 years for us, is to significantly increase our internal promotions and internal moves. And so that is something I'll be tracking, obviously, through Phenom, as well as our ATS, as well as our internal system HCM, to make sure that we are making traction. And if not, what do we need to look at? What do we need to change? There are definitely other modules within Phenom that we will be looking to add as well. We will look to add gigs. We will look to add mentors. There's things that we weren't ready yet for phase 1, as we call it, but definitely looking at for phase 2, as we think those things are important. We are also adding a lot of learning and development focus within the organization, so manager trainings, etc. So I love also within the tool, we will be able to see eventually the gaps that someone may have that's internal trying to apply for a role, and be able to then open and offer them a learning course that could possibly, get them to the next step. So there's other features in there that are very exciting that we haven't had the chance to get to yet, but that's definitely on our roadmap. And so to finish up, I've just left my contact information here for everybody. So definitely would love to hear from you. Definitely also able to offer assistance to anyone going through this process, as it definitely is a lot to get it right, which I definitely, of course, wanted to do the first time. And anything, to be honest, I've project and worked on with Phenom has been successful. This launch was extremely successful, received very well, and I'm very excited to see how it's going to move going forward. So thank you for your time.
Hey, you're back with Devin and I. Thank you. I want to give a shout out to Ashley, because Ashley, I know we're not supposed to pick favorite sessions, but I will admit, as of right now, that's my favorite session because of how much you packed into it. Love the advice, the real world experience of actually going through deploying internal mobility and experience platform for your employees, and giving us updates as it relates to how it went, what the expectations are, and what you're doing next. There was so much that I actually took an entire page of notes because I didn't register for the event. So I can't watch it on demand. So if you're catching us from our streams around YouTube and LinkedIn, you got to register to get access to that session. If you are watching us through the platform you registered, the good news is you can catch that session again and you can hear what Ashley really talked about. She talked about the steps to launch. They did flyers, they did presentations in the different offices. They built a lot of internal awareness about what changes they were doing, why they were doing those changes, what it was going to mean for their employees. And then she talked about different ways around treating internal employees just like external from a candidate perspective. So candidates had a great candidate experience, and we learned all about that yesterday, Devin. But Newell Brands wanted their employees to have that same wonderful and warm experience, and that's what they went after. And that translated into teaming employees up with job matching based upon their skills. The more they use the system, the platform, their portal, the more it learns and has better recommendations for them. She talked about better engagement with their employees in their employee resource groups, their ERGs. And then she even talked about how the chat bot is no longer just for candidates on a career site. It has just as much value in their employee experience now and helping employees as it does candidates. So that's why I love that session so much. It was packed full of detail and real world knowledge that we can apply to our own environments, and hopefully you can too. So let's keep it going, Devin. What do we have next?
Yeah, next, actually, we're going to talk about a topic that Ashley teased a little bit at the end there. And shout out to Newell Brands, big Sharpie guy myself. We are actually going to hear from Edie Goldberg of EL Goldberg and Associates. She's an HR expert and strategist, and she's going to provide, JD, forgive my pun, the gold standard of gigs and how to find that untapped potential that may be within your organization where people want to raise their hand and say, hey, this is something that I'm interested in. Do you have any work for me, any opportunities for me to advance my skill set? So with that being said, let's air Edie's session.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're listening this from. My name is Edie Goldberg, and I'm absolutely thrilled to be with you here today. For about the past 8 years, I have been deeply engaged in both researching and consulting about the future of work. So much so that last year I published a book titled The Inside Gig, which is really kind of a playbook for how you can help your company adapt to the changing nature of work and changing employee expectations. And I'm going to talk a bit about that in a second. But for right now, I know that a lot of you are worried about the future of your own work. Employers today are struggling to recruit and retain talent. At the same time, we're seeing a huge acceleration in hiring trends. All of this going on when there's lower candidate volume, higher competition for that talent, increased employee expectations about what their workplace experience will be like. And all of this happening at a time where we're all of a sudden seeing candidates ghost you. That is, they're accepting your job offer and then not showing up day one. So what is an HR professional to do? Well, I hope that in this segment that I'm able to share with you a way to invigorate not only your career opportunities, but also to help you lead your company in the future of work. I want you to join me in creating a movement to fundamentally change the way we work. Let's face it, we tend to put people in a box we call their job. We tie them to a set of job description responsibilities, having them do only the work that their manager wants them to do. This can often lead to boredom and disengagement, not to mention feeling stuck in one's career. Now imagine with me taking a big leap to a new way of working, one that better meets both employees' needs and their employers' needs. What if we focus more on the work that has to get done and the skills our employees have, and less on formal structures, job descriptions, and organizational boundaries? It's a more agile approach to work, making it easier for you to pivot to address changing customer requirements or changing business conditions. It's an approach where we let employees opt in to project opportunities that get them exposed to new experiences, help them learn new skills, and add value and make an impact in the company. By changing the way work gets done, we can get projects completed faster with improved outcomes because we are looking at matching the right talent to the right work without constraining people to the confines of their job. Research has shown that this new approach to work increases employee engagement. So welcome to the Inside Gig. It's a new approach to managing talent that will help you to share untapped talent across boundaries and unleash the capacity of your organization. We wrote this book in response to some really troubling statistics that we were seeing across a lot of organizations. Despite all the technological advancements that we have seen, productivity growth continues to be slow. Yes, there was some increase in productivity during the pandemic, but our productivity growth is still lower than what it was at the beginning of the 21st century. We need to rethink how work gets done to make big leaps in productivity. And companies continue to struggle with low employee engagement. Yes, there was some small bump up in employee engagement in 2020, but 64% of employees are not engaged at work today. And that means that you're leaving a lot of productivity on the table because we know that engaged employees are more productive. And all of this is happening when our talent shortages are at an all-time high. Well, this graph shows the talent shortages in the United States. We see the same trend globally. Over half of the companies in this world cannot execute on their business strategy because they can't get access to the talent that they need. Now, while this talent shortage has generally referred to more technical roles, today we're also seeing these talent shortages in areas like hospitality and retail. So if you're a recruiter, you know that there is some job security out there for you because these talent shortages mean that it's going to take more and more creativity, effort, and ingenuity to attract talent to your organization. But the problem is that we're not doing a very good job today of delivering on employee expectations. 2 out of 3 millennials feel like they aren't using their skills well at work. And 42% of them say that they're likely to leave the organization when they're not learning fast enough. But there is some good news and some hope here. 93% of employees say that they would stay longer if their company invested in their career, gave them new experiences, new opportunities. So to address these facts, we need to fundamentally rethink how work gets done to make big leaps in productivity. We need to help employees develop so that we can retain them for longer. And we need to leverage all of our employees' skills and experiences, not just the ones that they use in their day-to-day job. Now, imagine a work environment where you have more diversity and choice in the work that you do, where you can get full transparency to all the project-based opportunities that are available that align with your skills, your interests in learning, or even just for career discovery. And best of all, you can get equal access to those opportunities. They aren't just for people who are politically connected or sitting in the right place in the organization. Now, in our book, The Inside Gig, we outline 6 core principles that really create the foundation for operating in this new way. And what I want to do with you in today's segment is just highlight one of those that I think is really, really important. You Get What You Give addresses how talent sharing across organizational boundaries is a better way to optimize the talent in your organization. So what this means is that when a manager gives their employees time to work on a project outside of their day-to-day job, what they get in return is talent from elsewhere in the organization that have the energy, the enthusiasm, or the skills that they need to get a critical project completed. By sharing talent across departments, across boundaries, you can redeploy your talent to the company's most pressing business priorities. Just like Verizon did at the height of the pandemic, when all of their store employees had nothing to do, right? We closed down most of their stores, moved them into other customer support roles so that they could provide services where needed. Or how Ford took their engineering employees who were working on building cars and moved them into new projects to build ventilators to meet a pressing societal challenge. Let me share a case study with you to demonstrate kind of how this works. At HERE Technologies, their engineering team had developed what they would refer to as a platform that would help other teams do their work more efficiently. And the engineering team had identified the company's data scientists as ideal users for this new platform. So they set out to build a toolkit that would help the data scientists use that platform. And very quickly, one member of that engineering team came running into his boss's office and said, "Boss, you asked us to build a toolkit for the data scientists to use our platform, but they all code in Python and we all code in Java. We speak different languages." And the engineering manager said, "Oh my God, this is a nightmare. I have no idea how to find people who speak Python, who code in Python. Everyone I know codes in Java. And frankly, I don't have the time or the budget to hire an external contractor." And then he thought, now wait a second. We just implemented an internal talent mobility platform. What if we put a project out there on the platform and see if we can find people who have Python skills? And sure enough, in literally like 6 seconds, he was matched to 6 employees from across the organization who had Python skills and were willing to loan their skills just for a short period of time to help get this project completed. That engineering manager summed up his experience by saying, "The ability to borrow skills within HERE afforded us the opportunity to upskill our existing team while still meeting our project deadlines. And it's very clear to me that this project would have never gotten off the ground without our internal talent mobility platform." You may have heard of these types of platforms referred to as a talent marketplace. Traditionally, we thought of internal talent mobility as moving somebody to a new job to get a learning experience. Well, the Inside Gig talent strategy thinks about this much more flexibly. Rather than having to leave your job, what if we just break our job into a series of projects and then just simply make room for one additional project? Now, this more flexible approach to internal talent mobility is really important because research from I4CP, which just last week was released in Harvard Business Review, tells us that 50% of managers in general and 74% of managers in low-performing companies, they actually resist employees moving into a new role. But you know that our employees want new experiences that build skills for them. Now, implementing this innovative practice requires managers to change their mindset from a mindset of talent scarcity, where they covet and hoard their talent, to a mindset of abundance, where they see all of the talent within their organization as a potential source for any one of their critical projects. Now, this mindset shift is the most challenging aspect of implementing an internal talent marketplace. However, many companies have been really successful in using storytelling to help shift the mindset of managers. Just like the story that I just told you of the manager who was desperate to find people with Python skills and was able to do that on this platform. Imagine what can happen in your company if you implement this inside gig approach to your work. You can optimize the talent that you have by tapping into the hidden skills within your organization and letting your employees opt into projects that they're interested in working on. You can increase organizational productivity by creating a process that will help get projects staffed and off the ground faster with the right talent that will help optimize the outcomes you achieve. You can increase access to personalized learning experiences as employees opt into projects that they're interested in for their very own career development. So important for our reskilling efforts today. And you can increase employee engagement by providing the experience that your employees are looking for, all by more dynamically matching the right talent to the right work without constraining people to the confines of their jobs. Please join me in creating a movement to fundamentally change the way we work, an approach that will help you to redeploy talent within your organization, increase employee engagement, and reduce costs. You can count on me to share my knowledge and experience with you to help your company thrive in the future of work. But let me close by posing one challenge to you. What small steps can you take today to start to create inside gigs to help your company unleash the capacity of talent inside? Thank you. Have a great day.
Thanks, Edie. That was an awesome session. Gigs are something that I am a huge fan of, and I could talk about it at end, but Edie, you're the doctor. We know this. We saw the books behind you. If you look into the studio with me and JD, no books. So definitely take some of the advice that Edie had to offer there. She mentioned that work has to get done, especially in this tight labor market right now. And gigs truly provide a developmental opportunity for your existing employees, for them to grow and stay with your organization for long terms. I loved the language analogy there between Python and Java. I don't know either of them, so that's a completely different language for me, but I can imagine the stress that that would put on an organization and how they were able to resolve it. But JD, we do have an upcoming segment. Who is in the next session?
You know, you're always trying to get me to announce the next session, but I actually just realized we have HR Tech coming next week. And I know we acknowledged yesterday that we're still in the middle of a pandemic. There are people dying. We need to be sensitive and empathetic to all of this. However, some individuals are traveling out to HR Tech and are comfortable. That's great if they are. We will also have a presence as Phenom in a booth. If you are headed to HR Tech, we would love to speak with you. We're taking safety precautions. And as to not come to our booth and see a sales pitch, we've actually got some pretty fun games to play. And so please stop by our booth at HR Tech. I will personally be there, as well as a bunch of our phenomenal staff. And we want to see you, and we want to say hi and, you know, actually have some physical discussion. No contact, but discussion. So as we transition, Devin, to our next speaker, Shalia Gray. Shalia is a VP of Talent Acquisition of Quadient. We've known Shalia for quite some time now, and she's an amazing person and amazing at doing her role. She wants to talk to everyone today around what? Of course, the employee experience, but in particular, talking about internal mobility, talent marketplace, looking at some of the success tips, techniques, and then metrics. We always want to talk about metrics that go into this and that matter most. So we're going to ask Justin let's make sure we bring on Shalia.
Hi, I'm Shalia Gray, and I'm the Vice President of Talent Acquisition at Quadient. And I'm going to talk to you today about how you can reinvent employee development with the talent marketplace. So I will give you a little bit about my journey and my story with my organization. And then I'll give you some of my lessons learned to possibly help you if you're embarking on a similar journey. So I'll first start off by giving you some context. I work for Quadient. We are a technology company. We're based in Paris, France. We have about 5,000 employees, and we're represented in about 29 different countries. And the starting point for our transformation and our journey was our company's business strategy. We had a growth strategy for the company, and our growth strategy was based on a one company approach. So when I joined the organization in 2019, we were very siloed. We had 4 applicant tracking systems, and we didn't have an internal mobility strategy, but we seemed to have a lot of engaged employees around the world. But how we moved them and how we looked at them and how we assessed talent, that wasn't very clear to me, and it wasn't clear to the organization. And if we were going to grow as an organization, we were going to need to take advantage of all of the various channels of talent that we could. So we started on what I branded as our epic hiring journey. We created a focus, first, as most companies do, on the external talent in the marketplace. I mentioned we had 4 applicant tracking systems, and we collapsed that to go to 1 applicant tracking system. We wanted to have one face to the market in terms of our employment value proposition, our career website, social media. So we put a lot of energy into that piece. But what many organizations don't do is think about the internal talent and the internal experience. And so the question I posed to the organization was, if employees are really our greatest asset, what are we doing to develop them, to retain them, and to make them interested in the value that we provide as an organization? So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about our internal talent. So the first piece was, as I mentioned, I started this journey in 2019. And as most of you know, COVID became a part of our world in 2020. But this was actually, the timing aligned relatively well, in the sense that we needed to think about a flexible workforce strategy. And if we're going to think about internal mobility, this is a perfect linkage. So the first piece we thought about, and it's a tip I say to everyone, is think about the change management that goes along with creating this focus on your internal employees. A lot of times, and over the years, I've seen organizations spend so much time and money on the attraction of external candidates that the internal candidates don't have a unique experience. You also find that many of the people managers or leaders don't necessarily, they take for granted the talent that's with them in terms of how they communicate with internal people, consider them, and even their approach. So we decided that we were going to consider both equally important and invest as much time and energy. So that's one lesson I would say to people, is think of it as an equally important journey. The second thing is, think about your managers and leaders as coaches. And when you think of them as coaches, that's how you can frame this approach, because what happens sometimes is we think of ourselves as a family, and people want to keep all of their children or all their family members close. And so when they think about someone leaving their team who they've invested in to go to another team, it's not always a positive thought. Sometimes it can be thought of as betrayal, or, why would they want to leave me, as a negative. And so we wanted to couch this, and this is a positive. It shows how much good work you've done and how you're developing the careers of others. And if we're going to lose someone, let's lose them to us. So when we started on this journey, that's the first piece we started, was change management with our managers. So that's a tip. The second piece is, we thought about what experience did we want to build for our internal employees. How they looked at jobs, how frequently we communicated. So for recruiters, I would say, think about that. When you start sending out emails or doing phone screens or ignoring phone screens, think about the experience that you're creating and the attitude you're creating with your internal workforce. The next piece we wanted to do is leverage technology. I mentioned that we're in 29 different countries. And what we've been doing before was really more manual. We were putting things on the intranet. We were sending out emails within groups about job opportunities. But we had no visibility from one group to the other, from one region to another. So we wanted technology. So we went out and found a technology platform that would allow us to give that personalized experience and help with the career aspirations of our employees. The next thing we wanted to do as a tip is we branded it. We gave it a name. It's our career hub. We wanted it to look like a full experience. Our technology uses artificial intelligence to remember our employees when they come back. It allows them to connect with other employees that may be in the same career journey. We can link it to our LMS system so we can recommend courses. So we've made it an experience for our employees. The other thing was because we have multiple languages, we were able to do things in languages, which is very personalized. The next thing is, we wanted the platform to be sort of its own job portal, but we wanted more. So from our platform, we've actually created something for our managers to help them understand what we branded our epic hiring journey and understand roles, responsibilities, tools to make that experience with our candidates better. When we created this, we also wanted to think about success being our ultimate goal. So we created a goal in the very beginning of saying, if we get 20% of our employee population to adopt it, to sign up, to register with this tool, we'll feel really good. Well, in less than 3 months, we had surpassed our goal. So now we keep edging our goal out even further, knowing that it's not going to be for everyone, because we do have some jobs that are in our manufacturing and distribution, and they don't interact with our jobs the same way. The other piece is that we wanted to understand the satisfaction of our candidates, because part of this is we're doing this because we have a need, we want to invest, and we want to make sure that our candidate experience makes people want to tell people about our jobs in terms of employee referral. So we've been on this journey now for a little over a year. We've had positive experience, and what I can say to anyone embarking on a journey like ours is to think about the major pieces to this. What should success look like? How do you get adoption? And how do you make that experience with your internal candidates and your internal employees feel special? Our journey has just begun, and I hope yours will too.
Awesome. I have to start out by first apologizing to Shalia that I said your name wrong on the last time right before we went over to you. So my apologies. We're all human, but I definitely don't like doing that when we're talking about people and their names. So Shalia, sorry about that. I will say in your session, I loved that you talked about and weren't afraid to use words that are big, like epic. And you talked about epic hiring journey. And I think that's strong. And it sets a really strong and powerful tone about how serious Quadient was to this topic. And you led into it by saying, if employees are really our most important asset, what are we doing? And I think that's so important as an employee to an organization like probably everyone listening right now. That's a question we hope our employers are answering and then taking action and showing us. And I think we can all appreciate that. Right? We all want to know, what is the company doing to show that? And you shared a couple things. One, you also said deliberate these discussions, bring them up, talk about them, and really go after what experience and what you're trying to do. Another point that I took away that I really loved is you talked about you needed visibility into a lot of this. And so at some point you had to make the decision to actually go and get technology that would help you and put you in a position to deliver the experience you were looking for. So those are the things I wanted to mention from your session that I personally appreciated as an employee in hearing that yourself and Quadient are looking to and in fact delivering for your employees. Devin, do you have a favorite there?
Yeah, my favorite aspect was the importance of branding that employee hub that Shalia talked about. And the reason for that is when you think back to your youth, the things that were near and dear to your heart, your favorite toy, it oftentimes always had a name, right? And I know that an employee hub is not necessarily a new toy, but it could be viewed in that. So the importance of naming it and giving it some personality that people can get behind and enjoy going to visit and look for that next opportunity is oftentimes something that's overlooked, but a huge piece when it comes to finding success with these technologies.
It's great. But our day keeps rolling.
It does. It does keep going. The next up, we have Ben Eubanks, who is going to talk about two of 3 employees and what they really want. Now, this isn't clickbait that you'll see on the side of a Facebook ad where 4 out of 5 dentists recommend this particular toothpaste. I still need to find that 5th dentist, by the way.
What I'm worried about is, am I using the toothpaste that the other one recommended? Like Should I be in the 4 to 5 or the 1 out of 5?
I think 4 to 5. It's when that might be something we have to ask Edie about. After all, she is a doctor. But back to what we are going to talk about today. This isn't clickbait, right? Ben is going to share with us what 2 out of 3 employees are truly looking for at your organization. And he has the data and the stories to back it up. So without any further hesitation, let's hear from Ben and what employees really want.
Hey everyone, welcome. I am Ben Eubanks. I'm so glad to have you here for this conversation. So today I want to tell you some stories, share with you some research, some examples, and things like that to really bring this conversation around mobility to life. I'm going to start with a quick story. So I have a good friend, and a couple of years ago, he bought, of all things, he bought a backhoe. Okay. And he's got the truck, he's got the tractor, he had the other toy out there in the backyard because he had to do some work on his land. And so the first day he went out to take it out there, he was so excited to go and get some work done. And he realizes he's driving across this field that he's slowly sinking into the ground. And he'd been out there many times, but never in a vehicle that big or heavy. And so he stops and realizes, okay, I'm going to eventually run out of space. So I've got to figure out what I'm going to do. And he thinks on it, tries to go backwards and nothing's working. So he's like, oh yeah, I've got this big, claw thing on the back. I'll use that to try to push myself out. And it does not work. So after an hour of fighting and tugging and working and trying, and he's not getting anywhere. And he realizes, okay, just give it up, admit defeat, go call a tow truck and hang my head in shame. So he goes to open the cab of the vehicle and step out and realizes the mud that he is buried in is about this close to being up to the edge of the door. And if he had continued what he was doing, he would have been stuck in there and would have had an even more embarrassing story to tell later on when someone found him kind of stuck waiting for help. So I tell that story because sometimes things change around us and we don't quite realize it. We don't pick up on those cues. And I know that right now there are quite a few cues in the media and the market and the news, everything else, talking about what's happening in our space. But one of the things I want to encourage you with in this conversation today, I'll share with you some actual data. So this is just Ben's opinion of the world, but there's some actual data showing that the way our people believe, the way our employees believe the things they need from us has been shifting steadily over time. And for some of us, we may not have actually realized that or caught into those cues. And so today I'm going to give you kind of their voice. I'm going to step up and be the proxy for what they're asking for and what they're demanding and share with you some of those things. So before I get to the fun stuff, just a little about me. I'm Ben Eubanks. I'm the Chief Research Officer at Lighthouse Research and Advisory. I'm the author of a book, Artificial Intelligence for HR, which sounds like the most dry textbook ever, but it's actually a book about making work more human by automating those things that don't really matter that much so we can focus on those things that do matter. I also do 2 kinds of research. So here at Lighthouse, we look at the trends, the best practices, what's happening in the industry, and how to leverage those things that high-performing companies are doing so that all of us can have better results. On the technology side, we talk to 300 to 400 technology vendors a year, including companies like Phenom, and understand what they're doing, how they're doing it, and what kind of capabilities they have. So that's the kind of work we get to do. And it's so much fun because this all was rooted back in my experience as a practitioner. I worked as a recruiter. I worked as an HR executive. The first job I ever recruited for was a Black Hawk helicopter instructor pilot, if you can actually believe it. So I had a lot of fun doing those things over the years. And now I get a chance to work on giving back and sharing those findings and sharing that research and helping people to understand what's happening, because it is a full-time job to stay on top of the technologies and the research and all the other things that are happening in the world. So today we're going to talk about some research that we've done this year. So I love data, I love numbers, love evidence to help tell our stories and prove the value we're bringing. And we did a study this year of 1,000 different employees that are full-time employed in the US and Europe to understand what their priorities are, how they feel about their employers, how they think about what's going on at work, and what things they need from us. And one of the things that I sort of expected to see, and it still surprised me to see how big it was this focus on mobility and growth and development. So I talked to a company recently, and the leader was telling me, I've got people on my team that they're kind of happy where they are. They're content. They don't want to move up. They're just happy to do their jobs. And I said, that's all fine and good. But based on the research, statistically, for every person we have that has that attitude, that's, hey, I'm okay where I am, there are 2 people we have in our companies that are saying, I crave growth. I want to move up. And it's not just a craving or a general desire, like that'd be nice. But in the research, we actually found that 2 out of every 3 employees have left a job because they didn't perceive any sort of career growth ahead of them. And one of the key words there is perceive, because I know for some of you, you are working as hard as you possibly can. You are leveraging the tools you have. You are focusing on new processes and new strategies and new initiatives. You're trying to create these opportunities and shine the light on them. And if people don't see them, they don't perceive them, they might as well not be there. But there is a silver lining here. So in spite of the fact that 2 out of 3 people have left the job in the past, and guess what? If someone exhibits that behavior once, they're likely to do it again. Past behavior is predictor of future behavior. You can ask any psychologist that. One of the things in there that was incredible is that 88% of those, so 9 out of 10 of those people, if I'm being generous, said, I would have stuck around. I would have stayed if those opportunities were there. If I had a chance to actually grow and develop and strengthen those skills and leverage the capabilities that I bring, I would have stuck around. So we have an opportunity to connect these things together. And goodness, while challenging and difficult, those words don't seem to even do justice to the difficult work of hiring today that you're in the front lines of, you're in the middle of probably right now. Those words don't even describe how difficult that is. But how much easier would it be to say, we have already hired them once, they've already agreed to be with us. How much easier would it be to keep them and not lose them in the first place? The easiest job, one of my good friends is the head of recruiting for a 70,000 person organization. He said, one of the easiest jobs to recruit for is the one that you don't lose them in the first place, right? We tell them we love them, we appreciate them, we recognize them, we give them career opportunities, and then we don't have to fill that job because they're not going anywhere. So in terms of how to actually do this, and it's a great idea. Maybe you're along with me, right? You're here with me. You agree this is important. This is a great idea. But now what? Well, in the research, we actually asked about barriers to talent mobility on the employer side. We asked 1,000 different employers in one study and 850 employers in another. So suspiciously like 2,000 employers almost this year we've surveyed on this from different perspectives. One group of those was talent and HR leaders, and the other group was actually in learning and talent development. So different perspectives on this. And what we found among both those groups, the number one reason they said we haven't started these things yet is we're not quite sure how. We don't know how to begin. We're not sure what steps to take to begin down this path. So I'll give you some examples right now based on the research about how these companies are approaching this. So if you are in the learning side of things, if you're wearing that hat, you're more likely to say things like, we are working on developing and promoting career paths so that people understand what sort of steps are ahead of them and give them a little more control over what their own path looks like, which is a tremendous idea. I highly encourage that. But if you're on the HR or the talent side, the number one way those respondents are actually approaching this is they're saying, we're actually leaning into the tools we have. We have an applicant tracking system, or a recruitment marketing system, or a talent experience system. We're using these tools to help shift the lens from just outside to inside opportunities and help people see what sort of availability is there. One of the other options actually in the list, though, that's intriguing to me, I've been watching this really closely and doing a little bit of digging into it from a research perspective because I think it's really incredible, is this idea of a talent marketplace. And there's other sessions here at the event talking about those and the capabilities there, but there's a lot of evidence that show that having an opportunity, a gig marketplace, an opportunity marketplace, whatever you want to call it, inside the business to say, we have these needs, and allowing your people to say, I have these capabilities, I want to plug in and support those things. Take a second and think about that. How about this? When you got a job, when you got the job you're in right now, when you got that job, someone sent you an offer, they told you they wanted you and your strengths and the things you can bring to the table, that probably felt pretty good, right? I know in the past when I've gotten an offer, you're like, I've got it. They want it. They see what I've got and they want it. That's an incredible feeling. Well, giving someone an opportunity to do that in a gig marketplace creates that feeling all over again. It says, we see what you have and we want to leverage that because we think it's important and valuable to the future of this project, this team, this organization. You can just recreate that all over again. And while I'm the self-admitted data nerd and I love numbers and evidence, there's no disputing the fact that feeling and recreating that feeling is a powerful motivator to connect people, to make them want to work with you, to make them passionate, to make them excited about their jobs. We have other studies I can't even go into because we don't have the time in the moment. So much other research that shows that leveraging people's strengths, looking at them not as clones of each other, but as independent and valuable resources that they can bring their own unique blend of things to the table, that's a really powerful way to approach this and to find the value in what our people bring. So let's take a step beyond that then. I'm trying to paint this picture for you. We've overcome one of the objections of like, I don't even know what to do. I gave you some ideas of how companies are tackling this. The next thing is, well, how do we know if it's working? Once we begin this, or begin with the end in mind, a wise man once said, how do we know what things we're shooting towards or our targets are? So again, the perspectives are a little different there, but in general, they're pretty aligned. Regardless of whether you're in learning or HR or talent, the thing that we found, one of the most powerful indicators for success was greater diversity throughout the organization. Not just at certain places or pockets, but saying we value mobility so much, we're going to move these individuals, people of color, women, other minorities through the organization to find other levels of leadership and find ways to plug them in and create value across the board. Because we've all seen the data likely on the value of having a diverse organization that includes and appreciates and is psychologically safe. We've seen the data on that, but then sometimes it's really hard to move people or figure out how we solve for that. Well, mobility is a great way to do it. It's a great way to bring people up through the organization and plug them in those opportunities and level them up so that you can reap the benefits of having a more inclusive organization overall. But beyond that, so more tactical kinds of things, it could be as simple as we're going to measure the volume, the number of moves inside the business. There's a great organization that's in the banking and finance space that actually uses that as one of their metrics. And they moved 10% of their workforce one year in the last few years. They moved 10% of the workforce in that year, and lateral moves and promotions and radical changes of direction, because they make that a focus of the organization. They make that focus of moving people and helping them to feel like they're comfortable. There's an opportunity there to do that. Their culture supports mobility. And one other one that, again, as a way to kind of compare this and try to, especially if you're trying to sell this internally and you have people who are kind of pushing back or they're not sure, look at the performance or the retention or the success rate of an internal hire and compare that against some of the external hires. There's some powerful data from Wharton School of Business, for example, that says that when you hire someone from outside, they cost you more money and they perform worse on average for the first 2 years on the job. There's a lot of evidence out there that supports this idea that moving people inside the business, our data show that it's less risky, it costs less, it's faster, all these kinds of things that we can do to solve for these problems. And when times are good, when things are all kind of steady and as they should be, it's hard to sell this. It's hard to pitch something that's like this that may be a radical departure from how you've done things in the past. But when times are kind of topsy-turvy and up in the air and people are uncertain, it's a great opportunity to really look at this in a different kind of way and solve for it. And speaking of solving for it, one of the things that I love about this idea, I've talked about talent marketplaces and making things transparent through job openings and through career paths. The great thing is there are so many different flavors of how to solve for this. Maybe World Bank Group, right? Their approach was we had a hiring freeze. We put together a talent marketplace that we could tap into our internal people and leverage their strengths. And when the hiring freeze went away, because they were in a better position financially, their employees actually demanded, please don't get rid of that because we love the opportunity to step up and show off what we can do. Maybe you're like Chipotle. One of the decisions they made a few years ago that radically reduced their turnover was they said, we're no longer going to hire a store manager from outside the business. We're only going to pick people inside because we found that the people who come from outside are more likely to leave. They're less likely to perform as well. So they started using their data, like I just talked about, to prove that this was a good decision. And they drew a line in the sand and said, no more. We do that from outside. We're only doing it inside. Bechtel, massive organization, does a lot of government contracting. One of my good friends worked there at one point and worked in the HR team for someone who was a chemical engineer previously. And one of the things they do, that's an example of this bigger thing they do, where they actually advocate for and market during their recruiting process. If you are a high performer, we are going to move you around to different roles, let you learn from these different things. And then over time, we'll really sculpt the job around you as a high performer to do the things you really want to do. So there's so many different ways to look at this mobility conversation. It's not just, did you move from here to here to here? There's so many ways we can think about that. So I know we're getting kind of close on our time. So one of the things I want to give you some encouragement. Hopefully I've given you some stories, some evidence, some things to really back this up. One of the things that's been kind of surreal to me, and maybe for you as well, is it's kind of strange when conversations we would normally have in forums like this and in conversations that, behind closed doors at work, when those conversations about what's happening in hiring and employment make it to the headlines, when my neighbors or my family who don't have anything to do with talent and HR, when they're talking about, wow, what's this big resignation thing going on? What's going on in that world? And what do you know about it? When those things make it to the big time, that creates some different conversations for us. And what I love is that we can bring new value. We can take a different approach to these conversations. We can not only create levels of engagement and retention that support the business, but we can create these connections and support for people as they are pursuing whatever professional and personal goals they have. That's what I love about the work that we get to do in HR. You can't do this in supply chain. You can't do this in finance, but in HR and talent, we get a chance to support someone and the people behind that person, their family, right? The dreams, the hopes they have. The work we get to do has such a bigger and more meaningful impact. And I know that in the last year, we've heard a lot about frontline workers doing amazing things and supporting these really tough times. And every time I hear one of those stories, I can't help but think about the HR leaders, the recruiters, the talent executives, the people who are behind the scenes quietly, hiring them, paying them, supporting them, training them, doing all the things to make sure that those people who are getting the standing ovations, that they can do the things they need to do. So while you may not be getting that applause in that arena, I want you to know that I appreciate you for what you're doing, for the work you're doing, for making those things possible. If my team and I can ever help you with data, with numbers, some examples of what's happening, or just kind of a brainstorm on what's going on in the space, I'd love to have a conversation. You could hit me at my email address. It'll be right there on the screen. I appreciate you and the work you're doing so much. Thank you for your time, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your conference.
Please, Ben, next time, feel free to take as much time as you like. I really enjoyed your content and your session. I know you were a little worried about the time, but I can promise you anyone listening to that session would have been engaged. I found the way you started it, talking about tractor being stuck, in the analogy there, although I have not been in that personal situation. I did get my truck stuck in my backyard last year during the snowstorm up in Pennsylvania, and I had to have my neighbor come over, Devin, to actually pull me out of my own snow rut. So maybe I could have used that lesson by actually feeling like I was getting stuck and stop spinning my tires. So it's a good lesson learned. The other thing that I chuckled at is, at one time, and not many people know this about me, at one time I actually wanted to be a Black Hawk pilot. So if you were recruiting at that time and reaching out to me, there could have been a chance you could have picked me up. That never happened. I didn't go that route in my career and in my growth. The one thing that I loved is you didn't tease us. You did tell us 2 out of 3 employees have quit their job over perception, right? Perception of lack of career opportunity and career growth. And I can tell you from a hiring manager perspective, one thing that I really worry about is when I'm talking to both candidates coming in the door as well as existing employees, I worry that misalignment between where they feel their career is going or what opportunities they have compared to what opportunities we have to provide. I worry that's not in line. And I changed it from a worry, Devin, to a very open, candid conversation with any employee that wants to have it with me. And sometimes we're trying to be proactive about that. But where there's a misalignment, it doesn't mean it has to break up. We don't have to get divorced, right? But it does mean that we need to work harder to find the alignment and to make sure there's an understanding of what is available out there. And if it doesn't align, guess what? It likely is best for that employee to leave, to get that alignment and to get that career growth. And that's a hard conversation to have. It's really hard to think I'm going to have a conversation with an employee that I like, that's contributing, that may lead to them having to leave or look elsewhere or look elsewhere within the organization. Hard conversation, but it is a must-have, because you'd rather that and be a resource to that employee than them just quit over perception that growth is not there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Couples counseling, right, JD? That's what it is. You're meeting your in between and finding that neutral zone. I loved Ben's session. Unlike you, I didn't want to grow up to be a Black Hawk pilot, probably because of my perception of the movie Black Hawk Down. That might have strayed me away a little bit. But it is interesting where people's paths go. And you mentioning that you got your truck stuck and you never want to spin your tires. And as an employee, you never want to feel like you're spinning your tires at a position. And that's where those conversations are truly important, which brings us a little bit to our next session, JD.
What is it?
We are going to have Christine Kenzie talk about company culture. And what I'm going to say next may surprise you. She's not going to mention any ping pong tables, any snack walls, any beer fridges. While all of those things are good and well and fantastic at attracting talent into your organization, she's going to talk about the culture of learning and developing your employees and what they're truly looking for to grow. I had Ben Eubanks on a TXL episode a couple weeks back. Those of you who are unfamiliar, it's a live stream every Thursday on LinkedIn. You may be watching our LinkedIn right now, but we talked a little bit about growth and how plants are always trying to grow. Employees are the exact same way. So in this session with Christine, she's going to share with us how to establish that and really foster that development as well as growth within your organization. Let's hear from Christine.
Hi, I'm Christine Kenzie, the Senior Director of Global Organizational Effectiveness at Phenom, and thank you for joining me for our IAMHR session, Cultivating a Culture Where Employees Learn and Thrive. As a lifelong educator, it's no surprise I work on the people team at Phenom, given our purpose is to help 1 billion people find the right job. I know that for any business, people are the greatest asset. Like neurons in our brain, people form the connections and pathways that help companies achieve their goals and find success. And this means that retaining and developing our best talent is of critical importance. Now, the good news here is that employees are committed to their companies, especially when they show commitment back. In fact, 94% would stay at a company that was invested in their careers. Unfortunately, more than half of employees feel their companies don't provide them with enough opportunities to learn new skills and move up in their careers, and only 37% are satisfied with their organization's training and learning offerings. As a practitioner in the field, this last data point is particularly unsettling because I know how much time and resources L&D teams spend creating programming for employees, whether that's employee onboarding, manager training, instructor-led trainings and facilitation sessions, and even reimbursements for conferences, advanced degrees, and other external programs. So I can't help but wonder, where's the gap? What's the disconnect between what we're providing and what employees are experiencing? What I've come to find is that we all too often conflate training and learning, when in reality, they're different things. Training is often point in time with a discrete start and an end. People often approach training from a more passive mindset too, receiving information and then returning to their day-to-day when it's done, even if we don't want them to view it this way. On the other hand, meaningful learning is an active and reflective process that happens over time as we apply new knowledge and skills and reflect on the feedback that we receive from both ourselves and others. And this holistic view of learning positions development as cyclical rather than linear. It's no longer steps on a ladder, but more of a progressive loop. We follow formal and informal training moments with direct application and reflection, which lets us use that experience to reassess progress toward our goals and drive additional learning, which in turn leads to the next opportunity to apply and reflect, and so on and so on. When we view learning in this way, we broaden the definition and experience of professional development and career advancement. You don't need a certificate, a new role, or a promotion to grow. What you need are meaningful opportunities to apply knowledge in the flow of work and engage in conversations with others as you do so. Development is the experience, not the destination. Supporting this cycle may require organizations to shift mindsets around ownership and accountability, though, because it's not just about building great learning and development teams who facilitate training. It's about creating and sustaining a learning culture that's deeply embedded in an employee's day-to-day, which makes it everyone's responsibility. The beauty of this shift, though, is that learning happens all the time, which means creating a learning culture is not necessarily about creating more content or teaching people how to teach. It's about creating more intentional spaces for learning. We start by connecting existing training and content to the relevant skills and competencies our people want and need to develop. Then we can help employees use what they learn through real work so they can practice and learn with and from others. We enhance their learning using continuous feedback, and we maximize it with coaching and mentoring, which ensures employees reflect, assess their progress, expand their thinking, and continue to evolve and grow. So what might this look like in action? Let's consider a few examples. Managers can develop soft skills for individual employees using curated content such as podcasts or TED Talks. They can then use this content as the basis of a conversation during a mentoring meeting or a one-on-one, reflecting on what was heard, brainstorming ways to apply the knowledge to the employee's daily work, and setting short-term goals for improvement. Future meetings can be used to build on successes, review challenges, and continue through the learning cycle. I've done this before using a TED Talk from Tim Ferriss on fear setting, using my one-on-one to help employees define their blockers and fears and brainstorm ways they can prevent those from occurring or manage them in the moment if they happen. HR teams can support managers in this work by curating some of the content and providing mechanisms for managers to share resources they source, create, and/or use on their own. They can also ensure managers and employees have access to the tools needed to facilitate ongoing mentoring and coaching sessions and track their overall goals. Now, if organizations want to scale the learning for larger groups or populations, they can assign on-demand training content in advance of collaborative working sessions where larger groups tackle real business problems, reflect together, and build on the knowledge they gained. By flipping the learning experience and putting the scaled resources first, you create more space for deeper learning to happen when you bring people together. One example of this I've seen done well is when helping teams develop critical thinking skills. After sharing initial content around problem solving and bias and asking good questions, the group came together to review open issues and workshop solutions. The time was valuable for everyone because they finished real work while also learning how to problem solve better as individuals and as a group. Now, HR teams can support this type of learning by surfacing the right training content based on the skills and competencies that employees want to develop for their given career goals. Removing the barriers to finding the right content gives people just-in-time learning with the highest possible value for them. Perhaps the most powerful way to develop talent in the flow of work is through job rotations, gigs, or cross-functional projects and stretch assignments, all of which can be paired with reflective experiences such as retrospectives, mentoring, or coaching sessions. With this approach, work is getting done in real time as the employees are learning, moving the business forward, and advancing, all without needing a formal promotion or a title change. Job rotations and short-term gigs work especially well for organizations where roles have a good degree of skills overlap and movement across the company is supported. When the work is done as a team, it also provides a great opportunity to conduct reflective reviews at key milestones to assess progress, learn as a group, and adjust for the future. In this one, HR teams play a critical role in supporting learning because they serve as business partners to the leaders and teams as they define gig opportunities. HR teams can communicate processes and policies that will guide the work organizationally and ensure everyone has access to the opportunities using the right tools and systems. When we shift our approach from providing training to creating a culture of learning, we increase the value for both employees and the business. Gigs and cross-functional work help break down the silos and improve knowledge sharing across the business. Focusing less on formal programs and more on experiences supports agile learning that moves at the speed of business. And as employees socialize and in turn institutionalize their learning into their new practices, the organization learns and becomes more productive and effective. So you might be wondering how we get there, right? What does it take to create a learning culture? The short answer is that it starts with your leaders. L&D teams can support training, share best practices, and create content. But as I said earlier, the learning happens in the doing, and that's where you need managers. It's critical that we hire and train managers who are coaches, who see the value in mentorship, and who align with the vision you have for employee development. And then we need to provide ongoing training and feedback to those managers as they engage with their teams and provide learning experiences for their people so that they continue learning and evolving as they support others' development. And finally, we need to reinforce the vision for learning across the company with ongoing communication and explicit celebrations of learning moments. This is how the culture is sustained. And speaking of sharing messages, I can't express enough how important it is to market learning the way we market our brand, our services, and our open positions. It's easy to think that just because people say they want learning and development, and we all know they do, that they'll actively seek it out once it's there. But the reality is that the day-to-day can make it hard for people to come up for air and focus on the long-term value, like working on their development. We have to sell them on this value, and that starts by sharing stories. Who's seen career growth as a result of your opportunities? What outcomes came from a particular learning experience? Make sure that you market this and message it to your employees to help increase awareness and also establish some credibility and impact for organizational leaders who are looking at resource allocation and budget. You may also want to consider hosting internal events similar to those that you host for external candidates to help your employees with career pathing or internal mobility opportunities. And most importantly, make sure your people know where to go to access all of these offerings and that they have the right tools and technology to facilitate the work. As humans, we're all learning all the time, even when we don't know it. So creating a learning culture where employees can thrive is about leveraging that natural instinct to learn by creating intentional spaces where we can collaborate, communicate, and evolve together. Our job as practitioners is to design the experiences that move people forward with intention and know how to best support them along the way. Thank you for joining our session today, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the event this week.
Thanks, Christina. Ton of great information in there all around learning and development. And I also appreciated the nice little marketing shout out there. Perhaps your learning and development team just needs a little bit of good PR, a little bit of good press in order to get people excited about it. I know everyone wants to learn, but like Christine said, they just sometimes need to know where to look. JD, our next session, I am super, super excited about. It is the session where bags fly free. It is the session that will allow you to move freely throughout the country. In this next session, we have Kelby Tansey and Tyler Haygood of Southwest Airlines chatting a little bit about referrals. What else does this entail?
Well, they're going to talk about kind of the Southwest employee referral program, right? So whenever we're trying to attract talent, keep talent, engage talent, you get a good judge about how your employees are, how happy they are with how many referrals they're willing to do and give for your program. And of course, for recruiters and sourcers, referrals are the best folks to get because they convert so well. And they usually lead to really happy employees and a great culture. So I think what we're going to learn from them is how are they leveraging technology to bring more automation to the process. So it's not so hard to do. If I know someone great, like say I knew you and I wanted to bring you into the company, I want an easy way to do that. And so it's pretty much what it boils down to.
Yeah, at the end of the day, you're just asking a friend, hey, you want to get away? Come join our company.
Let's go.
I'm Tyler Haygood. I work at Southwest Airlines with Kelby, and I lead the sourcing team. Kelby and I partner closely together on the referral program, and we'll be digging in and telling you a little bit more about that today.
Awesome. I'm Kelby Tansey, and I lead our recruitment marketing team here at Southwest Airlines. And we're excited to chat with you a little bit more, as Tyler said, about our employee referral incentive program that we have just recently launched and the ways that we utilize Phenom's technology to really enable that program, optimize it, and make it the very best that it can be. So I'm just going to jump right in and talk a little bit about why we chose to incentivize our employee referral program and a little bit of history of our referral program as a whole. So we launched Phenom's internal mobility platform in January of 2019. Upon launch, we made the decision to promote our referral program, but not to incentivize it. And that has been going well for a couple of years. But of course, as I'm sure many of you know, as we have all ridden out the pandemic and gotten to this point, the labor market has been very tough, tougher than probably many of us expected. And so we've been looking at many levers to pull to really just increase our candidate pools, to really tap into those quality candidates and hire the very best here at Southwest Airlines. And one of those that we had identified was incentivizing this employee referral program. So we really started down that path, had a conversation with Phenom to see what all we would need to do to leverage our internal mobility platform in that way. And we're pleasantly surprised to find that the way that it was really already set up for us would enable us to do this through the employee referral incentive program. So we chose to incentivize our referral program with internal rewards that align with our overall employee recognition strategy. We call them swag points here at Southwest, but they allow our employees to go onto an internal platform, purchase things like gift cards, experiences, or even the coveted buddy pass for our employees to be able to potentially provide flights to family members or friends. We were able to incentivize the referral program through two different pathways. One was through a drawing. So just for submitting a referral, you would be entered into a drawing, and every week from mid-August through mid-November, we are drawing 5 employees to win 5,000 swag points. every week. Then the second was by submitting a referral that is then hired. And upon hire, the employee will receive 10,000 swag points. And at the 6-month mark, when that referred employee has been here 6 months, the referring employee would receive an additional 10,000 swag points. So 2 different ways to win, but both leading to the same, which is really getting that increased candidate pool of qualified candidates. Now, an employee referral incentive program is nothing new, but there's a lot of different ways that we took advantage of Phenom's platform in order to really optimize it. And I think that's one of the key takeaways here today. So one of those was when we were really communicating out to our employees, advertising the referral incentive program. We were able to do several company-wide communication touch points and then lead them back into the internal mobility platform to learn more or refer somebody. At the same time, when logging into the internal mobility platform for the first time, those employees were setting up their profiles. So we're really getting 2 things when they go into refer an employee. One, a more complete employee profile that we're able to let them know about potentially career mobility opportunities at Southwest, and a referred candidate. And Tyler's going to talk a little bit more here in a bit about how we utilize those referred candidates and some of the unique processes and systems that we've set up. On the other side of the utilizing the entire Phenom suite was really utilizing the CRM once we have a referred candidate, whether that's through automated communication to let them know a little bit more about jobs at Southwest, or even just referral communication out to them about the best way to set up a complete profile, to learn more about us, even back to the referrer themselves, an automated email thanking them for their referral and then giving them a few tips and tricks to make that referral as successful as possible. My team, the recruitment marketing team, really collaborated to help with some of that candidate communication, write it, and then also to set up the employee communication so that we are best leveraging and utilizing our employees as they're the ones who know the job best. They know what would make a quality candidate at Southwest, and we want to make sure that they know how to get that referral in. That being said, I'll pass it over to Tyler, who can talk a little bit more about how his team engages with our referrals and some of the processes we've set up there, as well as some of the results that we've seen just over the last few weeks since we've launched.
Thank you, Kelby. So like I mentioned, my name's Tyler. I lead the sourcing team. One of the main things that we do on the sourcing team is bring opportunities to candidates. And the referral program sitting in our space makes total sense. What we often find ourselves asking questions around are, how do we bring the most to the referrals? How do we make sure we're being mindful of this candidate experience? How do we ensure that we're converting as many of these referrals into potential hires? How do we find that balance with filling open positions and delivering that hospitality? There's a lot of thought that goes into that. And then at the same time, how do we balance hospitality with manpower, the administrative tasks that come with that, in order to be able to scale this program? Because, as Kelby mentioned in the beginning, a lot of the referrals were coming organically, and we wanted to figure out, well, how do we, eventually we want to start getting more of that, and we want to really lean into referrals, because as you've seen, if you look at any of the numbers behind referrals, the engagement's higher. They typically, your retention is higher if you bring them on as employees. Pick the column, and they're kind of checking the box for a quality hire and a quality candidate. So we want to leverage that and continue to grow it. But there comes the time whenever you have these calls and you realize that, maybe you're being a referee for a position that they've already applied to, or maybe you find yourself, delivering static information over and over and over again. And that was something we noticed early on, and something we wanted to address. How can we give hospitality and give all of this valuable information to the referral community, but also have valuable, meaningful conversations whenever we do connect with them on a one-on-one basis? So we, this whole process of standing the program up and working through what it looks like has been a lot of trial and error, a lot of iterations, and we've gotten to a point where we're on some really good things, and we're adding additional tools to our toolbox. One of which I want to talk about are referral info sessions that we host. We found this to be a great way to get in between all of the eager people that want to get on the phone with us. But, if we have 1,000 referrals coming in a given week, it's just not administratively feasible to schedule all of those calls to give that hospitality in a time where, they might expect. So the first touch point we've discovered that is great is we set up multiple touch points with these info sessions. These info sessions are hosted a few times a week. We've made an effort to find times that are available for the public, that maybe it's over the lunch hour or after hours. That way they can still juggle their job and still be able to meet with Southwest Airlines and get that content that we have for them. The topics that we cover in these info sessions are, how to put your best foot forward, how to interview correctly, especially in a virtual environment. We always go over the culture at Southwest Airlines. That's a big part of who we are and in our DNA. So anything we can do to provide that insight is always, it's one of the more fun times on the conversation. I'll say that. And at the same time, we have live chat going on. We have an FAQ we go through. And then at the end, anyone that wants to ask questions is able to do so. So even if the info session has 100 people inside of the meeting, I feel like they still get that connection with Southwest Airlines, and it gives that initial touch point for us. So we are able to connect with more people and then drive them to a conversation that might be more of, hey, how do I align my skill set with opportunities when they come, or understanding that, even though you're a referral, we still follow compliance, and that the first one to apply to a job is the first one that'll be reviewed. And that's really how you can help yourself whenever you want to be competitive. So just giving these tips and tricks along the way, giving them the valuable information they're seeking and getting to them quickly so they feel welcome, cared for, and appreciated, as that is in our DNA at Southwest Airlines. Hospitality and candidate experience is very important to us. So, I could go on and on about all the different things we're doing. We think the info session is a big game changer for us. We also are weaponizing our referrals and lining those up with large hiring efforts. As we came out of the pandemic, we had all of this pent up demand, and now we're in a position where we're hiring at volumes we haven't had to hire before. So now what we're doing is we're taking these troubled markets that we identify, and we're lining up direct calling campaigns against them. So whenever we know a position is going to post, we are calling into that market weeks ahead of time, letting those referrals know, hey, get your resume dusted off, get ready. This position is going to post, and go be at the top of the stack. That way, whenever it comes time, you're ready to go. The recruiter sees you right there, and we're bringing you through the process. We've seen a lot of success for this already. So it's just one of the many things that we're uncovering as we really dig into the referrals. It's in terms of volume that we're seeing now. I want to touch on that a little bit. Before, organically with the brand, with people just finding the opportunity to submit referrals, we were seeing about 125 a week. Now we're seeing about 1,000 a week with the new incentivized program, which is amazing. It does create its own challenges, but I think that some of the strategies we put in place are combating those. We're constantly focused on how do we deliver that hospitality, how do we meet the needs of the referrals and the referrers, for that matter, to where we keep them coming back, and we keep them bringing more referrals to us. So so far the results have been great. We're seeing at least 50% of these referrals giving us full profiles where we can go in and directly pipeline them, put them to the markets that we can leverage against, and turn these referrals into applicants. So hopefully that gave you an idea of how we're leveraging the referral program here at Southwest Airlines. It was a pleasure for me to be able to share with you how the sourcing team is taking these referrals and driving them through the process and trying to provide that hospitality along the way. Kelby, any words for them as we go?
Thanks for the opportunity to chat a little bit and to share how we're utilizing this technology. We truly appreciate the time, and we're excited to see the results of this over the coming months.
Thank you so much, Kelby and Tyler. That was an amazing session. First question that I have is, how can I get some swag points? It sounded like they had some great incentives for employees. But a couple of things that I wanted to highlight, JD, was the great communication between recruiters and sourcers at Southwest, and really the differences between a referral and candidates, right? They're the same. They're both looking for opportunities at your organizations, but they need to be treated differently in certain situations, and sometimes delicately. And what they talked about was some of the challenges of scaling their referral program. At the end, Tyler mentioned that they had 100 referrals, 100 plus referrals on a weekly basis, and that jumped 10x to over 1,000. So how do you scale that effectively? I loved the referral info sessions that they had multiple times a week. I can't stress that enough. Everyone's schedule is all over the place. We talked about flexibility multiple times throughout today. So having different sessions for people to attend and what the process looks like has to be so important, especially when we stress communications with candidates and now also referrals. So I absolutely loved that session. And I can't wait to hop on a Southwest flight soon and fly them, visit them down in Dallas, or perhaps in HR Tech next week, JD.
Yeah. So instead of want to get away, Devin, maybe they should run a marketing program like want to join Southwest. That and other creative marketing advice is free from Devin and I for the rest of the week. So please disregard anything you don't find funny. But we have to keep some humor anyway. So we've got what I think is a very challenging session next, maybe the most challenging session of the day. It's forecasting employee movement, churn, with analytics. How can you possibly forecast employee movement, churn? You can do so with some analytics. And we have Susie Michelle and Brendan Riley who are going to talk to us about this. In fact, they're going to go in a little bit of detail, and they're even going to share with us how you can reveal future talent trends and gaps with this analytics as well. So a mention, I think it's one of the most challenging topics. Let's see what Susie and Brendan can share with us.
All right, welcome everyone to our wonderful session for today. My name is Susie Michelle. I'm a training and learning specialist here at Phenom. And with me, I have Brendan Riley. Brendan, if you would like to give a little shout out to everyone.
Thanks, Susie. I'm Brendan Riley, Senior Manager of Customer Success here at Phenom. And today we're going to be talking to you about how you can better use the analytics platform specifically around EX.
So what Brendan and I are going to get into today is looking at sort of twofold. I'm a SME for our analytics product with Phenom, and Brendan has an entire world of experience working with our customers. So we're going to start out by, really looking at what our analytics has to offer in terms of insights and in terms of sort of data around your EX strategies and, identifying challenges, identifying successes. And then Brendan's going to go into sort of how to action some of these things. Does that sound like a plan for you, Brendan?
Sounds good to me.
Okay, perfect. So I think where we want to start off today is looking at where our insights are coming from in terms of indication for our customers. So like, where do you even start? One of the primary places we like to look is actually in our overview pages. So for your internal mobility, for your employee experience, what is the loyalty looking like? What are the page visits looking like? What is your engagement over time? As you build your employee experience, programs, as you start marketing to your internal stakeholders and your internal, candidates, really, you want to continue to monitor how much they're accessing your information. Brendan, what are some things that are, valuable with that? Why is engagement so important?
So really, it's the lifeblood of how you're interacting with your own employees. And this is a really good indicator of how your internal messaging is being received and actioned upon by your employees themselves. Specifically using the analytics tool and looking at trends over time and how candidates are logging in, what they're starting to look at. This is where we can really start seeing if the messaging that you're sending out with your internal systems is reaching the employees and if they're going through and doing it. Whether that be around referrals, candidate engagement, or just getting them more involved in, internal culture items like using ERGs and stuff like that. The overview tab is a good place to start by starting to be able to measure some of those indicators of just, are they getting into the portal? How frequently are they doing that? And being able to time those up with the messaging that you're sending out to your internal employees is a really good way to start opening up this world of EX and using the analytics piece to get more insight into there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think something that we talk about at Phenom a lot is that your employee pool is essentially your best and probably most underutilized pool of potential candidates. There are people who are already loyal to your brand. They're already here. You don't have to do a whole lot of work to get them in the door. So getting them into your, internal career site, getting them comfortable going there for resources is just a really smart strategy. It's also really low impact. Something that Brendan touched on is page views. So, as you're building out this hopefully fantastic internal career site, you're probably wondering, like, how are people engaging in your different layers? What are you providing? Brendan mentioned ERGs. Do you have resources available? So your internal page views analytics are going to give you some really awesome insights into traffic, really. Are there certain categories of jobs that your employees are going to? Does that give an indication of potential shifts in workforce? Like, are people looking for new jobs, or are they looking for categories to potentially refer? So there's some really good stuff on there. Average time on page, average time on site. Again, it's all leading back to your employees' investment in, your resources and your jobs. Brendan, what does page views have, in terms of action items for, aside from just understanding where people are going and for how long? What's something that our customers can do with that information?
Yeah, I think the page views option gives you two really good actionable items, both in the information that's provided on the page, but also remember, a lot of these reports can be downloaded and give you additional pieces of information that you can go and put in an Excel sheet and be able to really dive deep into the data. The first is going to be, how are candidates navigating your site, and where are they jumping from page to page to? This you can easily start seeing by looking at the pages by page type as opposed to just an individual page, and also then being able to go and see the focus of these navigations. Are they all going to jobs? Are there certain content pages that are getting much higher hits? And is that because of the content that's existing on those pages, or is it because of where you've put navigation links to those pages? And this is an area where you can use, UTM codes and other things to be able to see how candidates are clicking through. And you can use other aspects of the analytics portal to be able to track that navigation. But I think that's key in looking at the design of your internal site and being able to truly make this an efficient and easy to navigate experience for your employees, because it's the same as for candidates. We want to give them a purpose for logging in, and we want to make the path to that purpose as easy as possible for them to get to.
Absolutely. That's a really great point. I think it's pretty easy sometimes. I think we've all been a part of organizations that have sort of forgotten that, the candidate experience is very similar and doesn't stop once you become an employee. So continuing that mindset, continuing those, smart, efficient communication efforts on your internal career site should be, a best practice and a standard. Something that candidates are also really leaning into, and another area of your recruitment strategy that you could definitely be building on, as in this space, is referrals. Again, you already have your employees who are advocates for your brand, they're advocates for your department. So unleashing them onto your candidate community and having them bring in quality choices is basically a no-brainer. Phenom offers a pretty extensive referral report. You can do anything from tracking referrals on individual jobs. You can do reconciliation through our platform as well. If you have bonus programs, if you want to reward your employees for bringing in hires. And you can also really look at your referral program as part of your recruitment strategy as its own specific tool. So, monitoring campaigning internally for referrals, Again, monitoring against, different departments and their successes, individuals and their successes, and then seeing where there are challenges. So what jobs would you love to see referrals for that you're not really getting any for? What are, positions that are harder to hire externally for because they need a little bit of context from, from an employee's perspective or from an internal perspective. Brendan, I know you have a lot of thoughts around referral programs. What are some insights that you think our customers and just really anyone who are looking to expand their referral programs can grab from this?
Yeah, I think the referral program is probably the most actionable item from EX. And it's basically the way I like to think of it. You're deputizing your entire employee force as additional recruiters. You're saying to them, hey, we know that you have friends, associates, former coworkers that you have experience with that you'll know if they're good fits for our organization. So one of the things you can really take action on here is how do you best educate and provide tools for your employees to be able to go out and take action on this? So the first is going to be using the referral report to see who are your users that are going out there and making a lot of referrals. Reach out to them and get ideas from them of how are you reaching out to these referrals yourselves? What are you seeing in a referral? What tools do you wish we had provided? Make sure this entire process is well documented so that you know and your employees know what the expectations are and what you can do on the front end, and then also what they should expect on the back end. Educate your recruiting force on what your expectations are for them to be handling referral candidates. Do we need to set up automated emails that go out to referrals? Should there be a specific template pre-created so that candidate or recruiters can quickly reach out to those candidates and give them that additional white glove touch so that we already expect this to be an easier hire potentially because it's a referral. How can we make that as easy as possible on our recruiting force? So by providing these tools and giving them options, you have a lot more you can do with referrals. And the referral report is a really great way to track not only the referrals that are coming in, but who's utilizing these tools.
Speaking of hiring, naturally we're trying to get, either whether it's an internal candidate or an external candidate or referral, the goal is to get them hired quickly, efficiently, and with the most quality as humanly possible. So part of your entire EX suite in talent analytics is we have an internal hiring pipeline that shows you, everything, every step of the way based on your hiring statuses for every department that you have available from your CRM system. So that's even more insights into sort of like what's happening at every stage, and take that, download it. Like Brendan said, all of our reports are downloadable, and compare it to what's happening with your external candidates. Is there a lull in the process somewhere? Is there a stickiness factor at certain stages for internal candidates versus external candidates? Where can you increase efficiency? And again, increase that pipeline. Are you underutilizing your internal candidates for growth opportunity? Are there people, who are at your company currently who have skills that are applicable for newly open jobs, where you can sort of move them through your organization in a way that's going to impact them long term in a positive way? Brendan, I know for a fact that you have so much experience talking to customers around their hiring pipeline. I can speak to the numbers all day, but I would definitely love to hear your perspective on what this specific report really does mean for the overall strategies for EX.
Yeah, the hiring pipeline report is a really good window into what's happening internally in your organization, both within the candidate hiring process, but also the candidate psyche of when candidates are starting to get ready to move on to new opportunities or look at something else. And as you said, with downloading the reports, this is a really great way to start stacking some of these different analytic tools with each other to give you greater insight into what's happening. So this internal report is going to show you when your candidates are going and look at, or when your employees rather are looking at other positions within the organization. But when comparing this with the referral report, you can sort of eliminate those candidates that are looking at positions for referral purposes and start seeing a better idea of who are the candidates that are looking at other positions without making referrals. That indicates a better chance that they are looking to move into other opportunities. Twofold of what you can do with this information. One is to be able to see what are the most desired areas of movement and where are you seeing trends of people moving from maybe one group or silo to another of potential career paths that you haven't identified yet within your own organization. Additionally, this might give you insight as to when you might have to plan for employee movement and being able to forecast that to an extent and get an idea of where you might need to start pipelining externally for additional positions if you see that there's an influx in candidate or internal candidates from a certain area that are ready to move on. So this is a great tool for going in and helping with that additional forecasting, educating your recruiters on how to use it so that they can see where pipelining may be necessary, and then being able to utilize this tool cross-functionally with other aspects of the analytics platform.
Excellent. Yeah, I definitely think that's something that we don't talk about enough. So I'm glad we could touch on that. Something that we've recently introduced on our internal career sites is a bot. And, the bot seems like kind of a sneaker. Like it seems like it has like very specific functionality in terms of how we talk about it for external candidates, but really for internal, it's quick access to information. Our internal bot analytics, it shows you visits, conversations, an overview of what questions people are asking, what they're interacting with, what they're clicking on. It does do job recommendations in the same way that our external bot does. So, are your internal employees viewing jobs? Are they applying for internal jobs? And at what rate is that conversion? What are they asking for? Are there specific categories that employees are looking at? And are there ones that no one's looking at? And is there a reason for that? And then I think my most favorite one, just for training your bot and really making that experience again, elevated for your employees is, commonly asked FAQs and then most common phrases. So what are your employees looking for that they're not finding? And how is that really impacting your bottom line? Brendan, do you have any extra insights into that one? I mean, again, like this is a fairly new tool for us, so I would love to hear how it's being utilized out in the wilds of HRIT.
Yeah, the most common thing I see is that chatbot is very much a way of the future. Not everyone is using it right now in terms of your employees, but some of them will. And we find that the ones that use chatbot almost exclusively use chatbot. They find that as a more impactful way to utilize the site and get through areas. But for you and the analytics team, where this really comes into play is this is your most insightful tool as to the content that your employees are asking for. You literally get to see the questions that they're asking and how they're phrasing it, how they're asking it, so that you in turn can not only supply answers within the bot, but also use that to tell you what type of content pages should you be putting out there. What type of jobs are they interested in? And what questions are they asking about those jobs that should be in the job descriptions? Are they looking for testimonials? Are they looking for day in the life videos so that they better understand how other areas of the organization work if that's something they're more interested in? So this not only is it a great helpful tool for employees, but this is a huge opportunity to create content and be a content generator for your internal site.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. I think bot is the perfect place for us to, sort of reiterate what we talked about today. Ultimately, it's about getting getting behind sort of your challenges and understanding where your employees are at, and then getting ahead using trends, right?
Just that I truly think the analytics tool is really where you can get the best guidance for what actions to take. It's why it's such a big part of our MX experience, and where I think is one of the most underutilized areas of our system, given that a lot of the physical building of your progress can be done in the CRM and the CMS. So don't forget about analytics. It's a great tool that everyone should be using.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Brendan. I'm glad that we could go into this today. Again, I think it's a super underutilized, category of recruitment strategy. But thanks everyone for joining our session today, and hopefully we'll see you next year at our next IAMHR.
Hey, Devin, before we get into a next session, I think it would only be proper at this point for us to thank everyone that's behind the scenes. Once again, we like to do this every day, and we're not done, by the way. There's still sessions coming up, but I want to take just a moment to thank the people in this room, Devin Foster, myself, and Justin, who is the person behind the camera, pulling all the switches, bells and whistles. And then upstairs in this same house, it's really a whole building, the folks like Monica, Jen, Caitlin. I'm sure I'm missing others, and I apologize, because as everyone appreciates here, you mentioned one person, you likely accidentally leave out two people, and it's unintentional. But I want to thank everyone for pulling off such a great event thus far for IAMHR. And so we will keep going. We'll keep going. We've spent a lot of time talking about employee experience, and we've got another one. What is it?
We do. We are actually talking about how hybrid work data is triggering the future, right? How to get insights as to where your organization can go. I apologize, JD. When you referred to this as a house, all I could think of was this is the house that TXM built. And in our next session, we have Jenna Flipkowski speaking specifically around a data-driven approach to hybrid work. And it's an interesting thought process. Organizations are constantly battling. How do we bring people back to the workforce, even if they don't want to, or how do we switch to a hybrid remote? She specifically works for the Federal Bank of New York. So this has been exceptionally challenging with a lot of in-person employees. So we're going to hear exactly how she dove into the data to find the key results as to what to do for the future.
Hi, everyone. Happy to be here at the IAMHR conference. Before we begin, I just want to state that the views I express are my own and don't necessarily represent those of the Federal Reserve Bank or the Federal Reserve System. So I'm Jenna Filipkowski. I'm an IO psychologist. I'm a people experience researcher, and now I'm an HR practitioner. And in my career, I've designed hundreds of surveys for research and also for employee and HR capabilities. And I want to share with you today some of the key takeaways that I've learned throughout my career. And I urge you to listen and learn from your employees as you transition into new ways of working. So like I said, I've created hundreds of surveys. I get a lot of pleasure out of creating surveys. I know that probably sounds strange, but they're very fun for me in order to try to measure all of the ways you can measure what's happening in your organization. And a lot of organizations now are talking about what's our listening strategy. And I just want to define that before we start. So a listening strategy is an organization's approach for sensing and responding to their people's feedback, opinions, and needs. So it's really you're opening your ears and listening for what is happening inside your organization. And that could be people's sentiment. It could be people's the way they work and their workforce or operational data. There's a lot of ways to measure and think about what's happening in your organization, but they all fall under the umbrella of a listening strategy. So I want to share with you also some of the listening strategy activities that go into how you approach the way you listen. So most likely you've had a census survey or an annual census survey where you survey your employees once a year. It's probably like a longer, lengthy survey that takes probably like 20 minutes to complete. And it might measure things like engagement, intentions to be committed to the organization, manager effectiveness, and also a lot about your culture and the climate of your organization. We see a lot of organizations transitioning into more frequent surveys, so skipping that annual cadence and going for maybe quarterly or monthly or even weekly or daily. And these are much shorter surveys that would not capture all of the world that you think you can measure, but a few. So most likely engagement, or how people are connecting to their work, or also what other resources and needs they might have in their role. Another option is life cycle surveys. So these most traditionally are thinking about, after you complete a training, a survey that you have taken to evaluate your reaction to the training. But there's a lot of other ways you can embed life cycle surveys when you think about the entire talent life cycle. So from a candidate survey to an onboarding survey to a retention survey to a boarding survey if someone has a promotion inside your organization, and also most likely an exit survey. So these can be short surveys that capture sentiment and feelings and needs and opinions throughout the talent lifecycle. Some of you might have external or customer surveys. I talked about training evaluations. Another form of listening is more so that qualitative piece of interviews and focus groups. I know a lot of you have probably done those in the past. The very cool thing about listening strategies is the connection of looking at workforce metrics or operational data alongside how your employees are feeling. So looking at obviously like metrics like turnover rate, or the diversity of your workforce, or the number of promotions, or like the levels of your organization. These are metrics that are probably captured in your HRIS, but we see also organizations trying to capture the number of meetings that their employees are having, looking at things like, are people working on the weekends, and tying that back to how people feel about their roles. And that just opens a whole new, as a researcher, I get excited about that, but you're able to paint a better picture of what's happening in your workforce because you're capturing how people feel along with what they're doing. So that's it's just very cool, for lack of a better word. Other forms of listening, when you think about what's happening in your organization, or maybe some of the assessments you're using, your performance management ratings, also the informal conversations or formal conversations that your managers are having with their people, and also an always-on digital suggestion box. So something that's captured that people can submit suggestions or concerns continuously, and they always feel like they have a voice to respond to the senior leaders or HR in your organization. Some organizations might do all of these, some might just do one or two, but these are all of the things, and there's probably even more that I'm not capturing on here, of all the things that would fall into a listening strategy at an organization. So obviously when you have these, you can't just talk one-on-one with all of your employees. Interviews and focus groups only go so far. So surveys really are listening at scale, especially if you do them continuously or if you do them in a pulsing fashion. The thing I urge organizations and HR practitioners and senior leaders to think about is be super intentional around the ways that you are listening and the way you are conducting employee surveys. Don't just measure to measure. I think there is some value in that sometimes, but for the most part, you're going to collect data that you're not sure what to do with or how to use, and then you're going to wonder why people don't want to take your surveys. So this is something I've learned. I'm very cognizant around the user experience for an employee survey. You don't want to burden someone. You don't want to take up their valuable time. You want to provide something of value. And most importantly, they want to be able to see that this is a platform where they can truly and honestly share how they're feeling, what they're experiencing with you, and something is going to change because of it. So that's the most important thing I've learned. What I've noticed of why organizations conduct employee surveys, one of the reasons I've noticed, and this is unfortunate, is they just want to delay making a decision. They feel like they're not confident in the decision that they have to make, so they say we need more data. So that's one of the reasons why I see people not being intentional about surveys, just using it as a tactic to delay decision making. Another unfortunate reason why I see organizations conduct employee surveys is they want to give the illusion of action. So they want to say, oh, we're going to do a survey and we're going to understand, when really it's again another way of delaying or assuming that we're having activity. So yes, we're working on it. We sent the survey. The third way, and the best way organizations conduct employee surveys, is they seek to understand. They truly approach it as a research question, and sometimes that research question can be exploratory, but they don't know enough, but they also don't know enough because they truly want to take action on what they don't know. So they want to seek to understand is the best reason to conduct intentional employee surveys. And make sure you fall into that group and push back on your business leaders and your senior leaders if they want to deploy survey methodology but don't have a good enough reason to do so. And that brings me to this quote that most people do not listen with the intent to understand, they listen with the intent to reply, meaning they already know what action they want to take and they just want to validate it versus truly being open to what their workforce is saying back to them. So true research should challenge your hypotheses and your assumptions, and that should be open to a listening strategy. So it's a different mindset of being open to what your workforce is truly saying to you and adjusting and acting as needed versus just collecting data to validate your preconceived decision. And that brings us to some of the big questions a lot of organizations are asking right now. What questions or research questions do you have about hybrid work? So some organizations are in the opportune place to challenge the ways they've been working and maybe moving to a fully virtual model or a model where they work sometime on site, sometime off site, if those roles allow. So these are bringing up a lot of questions around are we working in the best way? And to answer that, you need data. You need data from your workforce, and you also need a data on the preferences and the needs of your employees to truly answer that question. These are all possible questions about hybrid work that we can ask and we can answer with data. So what working model fits our culture and our business strategy? Is it hybrid? Is it 100% on site? Is it a combination of the employee decides? Is it top-down driven, meaning you're going to be here every Tuesday? Those are big questions that you need input from obviously your business leaders, but also your employees around what working model fits the way that they work and the roles and responsibilities they have in their job. Also, another question is, how does hybrid work change your employee value proposition? Or is that going to change how we source candidates, how we look for what makes us an attractive employer? And that's something you can answer with data around your candidates. What resources do our employees need to be productive and engage in hybrid work? That could just be a traditional survey, like, do you have the setup at home that you need, or what concerns or issues do you have around coming on site, given what's happening with COVID? So there's a lot of questions you can ask there around, do you have what you need? And you can be very direct about that in your surveys. Another question is, how does the employee experience, when you think about sentiment, collaboration, workload, and productivity, differ by how much time is spent on site? Are you creating two different employee experiences, one for those who choose to work remotely more often versus those who come on site more often? Is it like an in-group and out-group effect because of the frequency of on-site work? Is another question that you can ask with hybrid work and with a listening strategy. And are managers effective? Meaning, if they have teams that are on remote or on site and a mixture of both, do they know how to lead a meeting well? What is the feedback that employees are giving on their managers and their leadership style in this hybrid way of working? And also, what are the patterns of communication and collaboration? So that's looking at some of the workforce metrics that you collect around who's chatting with whom and who is looking at different forms of collaboration. What are the networks that are forming? Those are obviously very sophisticated analyses that I even personally don't know how to do, but it's looking at organizational network analyses and thinking about what are the patterns of connection and collaboration? Are there in-group, out-group effects? Do people who don't come into the office enough, are they left out of key decisions? Are they left out of important work projects? And you could look at patterns of networks, but you could also even ask that question in a survey, meaning how often do you come on site and do you feel included as part of your team? Do you feel like people make an effort to include you in decision making if you're working remotely more often. So there are many ways to answer these questions and many sources of data, but I think these are big questions we want to help answer with a listening strategy. So as I think about what are things I've learned conducting employee surveys, I just want to share the top 5-ish things to remember as you design employee surveys. So one, and these are, I know you know this, but sometimes you're writing a survey and you don't even realize that you did this. So avoid leading questions, stay very neutral with what you're asking. Always use a rating scale to get how much favorable or unfavorable they have about that neutral statement. Also avoid double barrel questions. Don't ask about 2 things in the same item. Of course, you know that. Stay focused. Don't throw in the kitchen sink, meaning if your intent is to measure manager effectiveness, don't throw in questions around onboarding or performance management unless they're connected to manager effectiveness. Another thing you want to do, number 4, is connect each question with potential actions. Same with staying focused. If you're not intent on taking a potential action based on the questions you're asking, then I would not include those questions in your survey, or don't include many in your survey. When you give a survey to employees, they feel like this is a chance for them to voice their concerns, opinions, and feedback. And if you're asking it, the first line of thinking is something might be done because of this result. So can make sure you can connect each question to potential actions that you can take. And lastly, we want to make sure that we're making representative samples of the people in our organization. So a good rule of thumb is invite twice as many people as you would need for a minimally acceptable sample size. So say you're measuring the new hire experience and you've only had 100 new hires that year, but you only had 5 people take the new hire survey. Obviously, you can't, it'd be really hard to generalize the experience of 5 people to an entire new hire experience. So just think about, try to collect as many people as you can, but also don't ask people to take too many surveys. And lastly, I just want to throw in there, distribute results and insights as soon as you can, meaning don't make the turnaround time to distribute surveys longer than it needs to be. And there are a lot of the survey tools out there can make it almost instantaneous from data collection to analyzing your results. So be very cognizant around how can you design surveys, how can you set up your platform, how can you set up your team to distribute the results almost instantaneously versus having people wait. So as we wrap up, I just want to share with you a tool that I've used in my roles around how to help organizations create a listening strategy. And it's a very simple template where you outline all the activities that you choose to have in your listening strategy. So if it's a census survey, a pulse survey, 360s, exit survey, or all of the above, but then you clearly say what the intent or purpose is of that survey, the frequency you're going to distribute it, who's going to get it, but most importantly, who is going to see the results and be responsible for action planning, and how often the results are going to be reported out to them. So it's all HR functions should have something like this to be more intentional and less ad hoc about your employee listening. So I just wanted to share this with you because I thought it was a super helpful way to help brainstorm and think about what activities are going to be in your listening strategy, but most importantly, how they're going to be used. So that's it. Thank you for spending some time with me and allowing me to share what I've learned around surveys in my career. I would love to stay connected with you, so please follow me on LinkedIn or connect with me on LinkedIn or shoot me an email if you have any questions. But thank you for listening and take care.
I hear the chanting. I see it in the chat. 2 more days. 2 more days. 2 more. Yes, we have 2 more days. We have 2 more exciting days of content, but today is not over. if you are a customer of ours, remember there's exclusive customer workshops happening almost now. You'll see it on your viewer on the left side of your screen. You can join, and you can then very soon take part in the customer workshop. And again, these customer workshops are exclusive to, you guessed it, customers. If you are not a customer, I'm sorry, we hope one day you can be, but we hope the content at IAMHR has been extremely valuable thus far. I wanted to mention, if you've joined us on our live streams on LinkedIn or on YouTube, anyone, whether you're an existing customer or anyone looking for best practices, advice, thought leadership, you want to actually register for this event. That will give you access to all of the on-demand content. So you can rewatch some of these favorite episodes. You can take away the tips. Of course, we all take screenshots. Take a screenshot, right? But you can't really do that if you don't register for the actual event to get access to all this material. So we've spent 2 days so far. Yesterday talking about the candidate experience and hearing from a variety of thought leadership speakers, industry practitioners. Today, we talked all about the employee experience and how important that is. But not just, oh, this is really important, what do you do? We heard about epic hiring journeys, and we heard about automation, and we talked, and I didn't talk about it, but we heard about technology and how technology is aiding in the ability to engage with employees, understand where they want to go, have these conversations, and apply technology to career pathing and matching, all this great stuff. So Devin, I mean, what else we can talk about?
JD, tomorrow is a day that I am particularly excited about. And the reason for it is we have a heavy prescription of RX. That's right. I'm talking recruiter experience, the folks behind the scenes who help you get those candidates that we talked about on day one, who eventually turn into those employees that we talked about on day 3. So you guessed it. 3 is the magic number. We are talking about RX, recruiters and sourcers. And JD, what I'm most excited about is we're talking about AI and automation and how that can help them, and how automation invades AI and AI invades automation. The difference is how that can help out with SMS, within your CRM, within your automated campaigns. We dive into how you can save time and sanity, which doesn't get talked about enough for recruiters, but sanity throughout their day, and turn them back into talent advisors where they can have some of those really meaningful conversations to attract talent towards your brand. JD,
yeah.
One last thing before we go.
I can talk. I can keep going.
I know you can.
Okay.
I know you can. If you are interested in seeing anything that we talked about on day 1, day 2, we have operators on the line right now that you can request a demo. Isn't that right, JD?
I'm getting a call now, Devin. Yes, we'd be glad to speak with you. Thanks for having an interest. Devin and I are joking around. We're having a lot of fun here, but we want to continue to welcome our guests that are catching us, whether it's a live stream, whether you're registered. You can still share the link out and spread it with the community, HR community. Tomorrow will be a special day. We know much of our audience are either a recruiter, a sourcer, a talent marketer, somewhere in talent acquisition, and we appreciate you. Tomorrow will show that. And there's a mystery right now in the entire HR industry, which was, what does really the role of AI play in helping me match talent, discover talent, automate processes in order to make the whole experience of matching candidates, getting through screening and scheduling, and getting that kind of the more mundane tasks of recruiting, having those more mundane tasks automated. And you mentioned allowing them to spend a little more human time connecting with people and making a meaningful difference. So we couldn't be more proud of tomorrow's lineup and the topics we're going to talk about.
Thanks so much for joining us today. We'll see you tomorrow.
Cheers.